Most climbers fear K2 for its savage beauty. It stands 8,611 meters high, with a fatality rate once as steep as its walls. There is one face so lethal and so unforgiving that rescue is not an option. In 1986, two Polish legends carved a new route up a 3,000-meter avalanche-prone nightmare, a line so exposed to ice and avalanche that almost no one has dared climb it since. Why was this line climbed once and never again? The answer begins with the mountain itself. K2 rises 8,611 meters above sea level, the second highest point on Earth. But altitude alone does not explain its reputation. The mountain's nickname is the Savage Mountain, and it comes from a record of hardship that dwarfs most rivals. Out of roughly 800 people who have stood on the summit, about 100 have died trying. That is an overall death to summit ratio of around 11%. One fatality for every 9 or 10 successful climbs. In the early decades, before modern weather forecasting and modern gear, the odds were even worse. Nearly 1 in 4 would-be summiteers did not return. Unlike Everest, where thousands have reached the top, K2's numbers remain stubbornly low. There are no crowds, no fixed ladders, and no margin for error. The weather is infamous for turning violent with little warning. Storms can trap climbers for days, and winds at the summit often reach hurricane force. Even on the standard Abruzzi spur, the so-called easiest route, climbers face steep rock, exposed ice, and the constant threat of avalanches. Every statistic on K2 carries a cost. In 1986, the mountain claimed 13 lives in a single season, a reminder that every step upward is a gamble. For those who dream of new lines, the risk multiplies. To attempt a fresh route on K2 is to enter a world where survival, not glory, is the real prize. The mountain's numbers are not just records, they are warnings carved into stone and ice. The south face of K2 does not offer second chances. It rises more than 3,000 meters in a single, unbroken sweep. A vertical world of blue ice and shattered rock. Here, the wall is not just steep, it is almost sheer, with sections that tilt beyond 60 degrees. Massive seracs, unstable towers of ice, loom overhead, ready to collapse without warning. Avalanche corridors slice through the face, funneling snow and debris down, with nowhere to hide and no warning to run. Any attempt to climb here means moving directly beneath these hanging threats, exposed for hours, sometimes days, with nothing but luck and judgment to keep disaster at bay. Unlike other faces, the south face offers no ledges, no safe zones, no natural escape routes. If conditions turn, retreat is nearly impossible. Whether going up or down, the hazards remain the same. Ground rescue is out of the question. Even the world's best helicopters cannot reach these heights. The highest rescue flights in history have only touched the lower slopes of K2, thousands of meters below the Polish line. The air is too thin, the winds too violent, and the wall itself too steep for any pilot to risk a hover, let alone a landing. Above 7,000 meters, the mountain becomes a closed arena. Once committed, climbers are entirely on their own. A misstep, a sudden storm, a serac breaking loose. There is no rescue and no way out. The south face is not just a climb. It is a place where the mountain itself becomes the final judge, and where every decision can be the last. Jerzy Kukuczka grew up in Silesia, Poland, where the mines and factories shaped a generation of climbers with grit and endurance. Born in 1948, he would become only the second person in history to climb all 14 of the world's 8,000-meter peaks. But unlike his rival Reinhold Messner, Kukuczka often sought out new lines, routes no one had ever touched. He believed in tackling the mountain on its own terms, carrying everything on his back, refusing bottled oxygen, and relying on skill rather than siege tactics. His climbs were marked by speed, minimalism, and a willingness to face the unknown. Tadeusz Piotrowski, born in 1952, was a physicist by training and a climber by calling. He excelled in technical rock and ice, earning respect for his analytical mind and calm under pressure. Piotrowski's Himalayan resume included bold traverses on Broad Peak and first ascents on remote faces. He was known for careful planning and his ability to read the mountain's moods, a counterbalance to Kukuczka's relentless drive. Both men came of age in a Poland marked by scarcity and hardship. The 1980s saw martial law, empty shelves, and few resources for mountaineers. Yet this scarcity bred a special kind of resourcefulness. Polish climbers became famous for their ability to endure long, brutal expeditions with second-hand gear and little outside support. Their approach was called alpine style. No fixed ropes, no high-altitude porters, and no supplemental oxygen. Every decision had to be right the first time. Mistakes could not be undone at 8,000 meters. For Kukuczka and Piotrowski, the south face of K2 was not just a test of technical skill. It was a proving ground for their philosophy that the purest climbs are those where survival itself is the only reward. Their commitment to the Polish line was not born from recklessness, but from a belief that the greatest achievements come from facing the mountain with nothing but your partner, your skill, and your will to endure. That ethic would soon be tested against the most dangerous wall in the Karakoram. Storms swept across the south face, pinning Jerzy Kukuczka and Tadeusz Piotrowski to the mountain for days. Up high, the wind screamed through the couloirs, shaking their bivouac sites and sending spindrift into every seam of their gear. 4 nights passed in makeshift camps carved into the ice, each one a gamble against collapse or avalanche. Food and gas ran low. Water was rationed to mouthfuls. Every breath felt thin, every movement a test of will. The route steepened as they entered the hockey stick couloir, a narrow, twisting gully choked with hard ice and shadowed by overhanging seracs. Above 8,000 meters, the head wall loomed, a near-vertical barrier hidden from below that demanded every last reserve of strength. Fingers and toes went numb. Conversation shrank to grunts and single words. The mountain offered no shelter, only exposure and the threat of a sudden fall. On July 8th, after 5 days on the face, they reached the summit at 6:25 p.m. The sun was already sinking behind the Karakoram. There was no celebration, just a silent acknowledgement of what lay ahead. The descent would begin in darkness, with no fuel, little food, and bodies pushed to the edge. At that moment, victory felt like a warning. The summit, so coveted, became the most dangerous place on Earth. Survival now depended on finding a way down, before the mountain claimed more than it already had. Night fell as Kukuczka and Piotrowski began their descent. Their bodies were starved, their minds clouded by exhaustion. They bivouacked high on the mountain, exposed to the cold, with no light and almost no gear left. Dehydration made each step unsteady. In the thin air above 8,000 meters, judgment faltered. Somewhere on the upper Abruzzi spur, Piotrowski's crampon slipped or failed. Accounts differ, but the result was the same. He lost his footing on the steep ice and vanished into the darkness below. Kukuczka, powerless to help, watched his partner disappear. It was July 10, 1986. The climb that had demanded everything now took more than either had bargained for. Alone, Kukuczka faced the rest of the descent, carrying the weight of survival and loss down the world's deadliest mountain. Kukuczka descended alone, stepping down through silence and debris left by a season that had already claimed so many. In 1986, K2 saw 27 climbers reach its summit, but 13 lost their lives, nearly 1 death for every 2 who stood on top. The Polish line, etched into the south face by Kukuczka and Piotrowski, has never seen a second ascent. No team has dared to follow their path, deterred by the memory of that climb, and the toll exacted not just on bodies, but on entire communities of climbers. The route stands as a warning, not a goal, a line written once into the mountain and once into memory. For those who study K2's history, the Polish line is not just a technical challenge, it is a stark reminder of the cost of ambition when the mountain's hazards are beyond any climber's control. Today, the Polish line stands untouched, a reminder that some boundaries resist conquest, not just because of danger, but because of the value of life itself. As ambition pushes climbers to new extremes, K2's south